The PorscheSport podcast, powered by Porsche Centre Leeds. Test drive the new Porsche Taycan and experience soul electrified.
Hi, it's Kevin Estre.
It's Jörg Bergmeister.
It's Larry Forde.
It's Timo Bernhard.
And you're listening to the PorscheSport podcast
with Peter MacKay
and Haley Edmonds.
Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the PorscheSport podcast, because joining me today on the programme is, above all, one of our voices of the PorscheSport podcast. For regular listeners to the show, we'll hear many voices of prominent Porsche drivers from past and present, and one of them is Jörg Bergmeister, and he's very kindly given up the time to join us on the show today. Now, before we introduce Jörg and bring him in to chat to us, I want to run through his list of achievements, and I need a big deep breath for this one. Jörg is a world endurance champion, a 5-time American Le Mans Series champion, a Spa 24-hour winner, a Grand Am champion, a Watkins Glen winner, 2 times a winner at Le Mans 24 Hours, 4 times winner at Sebring, 5 times winner of the Petit Le Mans, 3 Daytona 24-hour wins, including a win overall in a GT car, a Porsche Super Cup Championship, and a Porsche Carrera Cup Germany title, amongst many other achievements. Jörg, first of all, a huge welcome to the show, but that is quite a list of achievements. You must be very, very proud of what you managed in your career.
Well, first off, thanks for having me, Peter. Now I'm blushing a little bit. I guess it wasn't too bad, I'd say. Obviously, during my career, I was always looking from one race to the other and to really never look back. And I usually am not a guy that looks back into the past too much. So you going through that, I was like, oh, it wasn't too bad then.
You packed a lot in. You have all those air miles across the Atlantic were worth it.
Yeah. I always kept saying while I was, in busy years, I was racing in the US and Japan and in Europe. So I was I would say, a very good customer for Lufthansa, and their highest status card is black. And I always said it's black because I feel sorry for you because you have to fly so much. Definitely collected a lot of air miles, but always enjoyed going to the races, and was really cool.
I mean, we've got so much to talk about, Jörg. I mean, normally we would start at the very beginning and talk about, karting and things like that. But I want to dive straight in and right at the point. When did Porsche come into your career? What was that? What was going on at that moment in your career? And how did they come into the picture? And what effect did they have on your career path?
Well, that's quite a long story. So basically, my dad was a professional racer as well, mostly for Audi, but also did a couple of races in a Porsche. So at some point, I guess he realized that I'm becoming a bit too tall for open wheel racing. And then at the age of 18, he put me in a Cup car, which still was a 964 Cup. And I did a test in Hockenheim, which didn't end too well because I crashed a little. And then had me also do a race in the Porsche Trophy 1994 at Nürburgring. And that was just to get a feel and see how I do. I did the entire weekend on one set of tires, so very low budget. But basically he just wanted to see how I do and if I like it and if that's a way of a career I would like to approach. In 95 then I went back to open wheel, did Formula Opel, won the championship, finished second in the championship in Germany. And in 96 there was a shootout for the Porsche Junior, which wasn't the Porsche Junior of the factory, but of the Porsche Center Koblenz, which back at the time was a really successful team. I won that shootout, and then for 96 was my first season in Carrera Cup. First race started very good, finished third. For second race in the rain, I was on pole, so was a pretty good start. But unfortunately, the sponsor that was meant to be with the team dropped out, and so therefore the funding wasn't too good for the rest of the season. And I think I finished 6th or 7th in the championship, which wasn't awful, but also not great. And then for the next couple of years, this was basically on and off, low budget and trying to find a ride somehow. '99 was a 996 Cup.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, a new car for everyone. Was a really small team. Was Knüpfing Motorsport at the time, finished third in the championship with a budget of back then 150,000 Deutschmarks, which was nearly next to nothing. And then for 2000, I just got super lucky. The best friend of my dad was a barber, and the marketing boss of Johnson Controls, which is a big car supplier, went by accident to that barber, and they started talking about motorsport. And he then said that they're looking on doing a sponsoring in motorsport. And he connected us, and that was the first time for me to run a full championship on a proper budget with Farnbacher Motorsport. Won the Carrera Cup in 2000, Super Cup in 2001, and then became factory driver. But basically, without the visit to the barber, I think that wouldn't have happened.
Wow. That's an amazing story. So the moral of the story is always make sure your hair is in perfect condition, always.
Well, for the marketing boss, yes. Really just still thankful to my dad's friend that he connected us there. And because we all know it just takes a lot of luck to make it in motorsport. And without that connection, I'm sure I wouldn't have made it.
Wow. And there's got to be something about barbers, because do I remember correctly, Jörg, that Sascha Massen's father was a barber as also?
Yeah, that's correct, yes. Something about networking, I guess, never hurts, right?
Maybe this is maybe not so good marketing if you could say that a Porsche is a hairdresser's car. That has a different meaning here in the UK. I mean, you're looking at some of the people that you beat in the Carrera Cup Germany and in the Super Cup. You know, Frank Stippler, Timo Bernhard, Mark Lieb, your brother Tim, Marco Werner, Stefan Ortelli, Sasha, all these guys. I mean, so at that point, going through that level, you were basically, as an independent driver, trying to be. Were you actively trying to be kind of noticed or chosen by Porsche? Was that the plan at that point?
To be honest, I would say there was not really a plan. I, of course, had the plan that I want to make a living in motorsport, which I just started doing then by prize money in Carrera Cup and Super Cup. And yes, I was still fairly young and was definitely hoping that someone would recognize what I'm doing. But I never really anticipated that it would happen. I was hoping for it, but as you know, you need to be lucky to be at the right time at the right spot. And at the end of 2001, after winning Carrera Cup, I had some talks with Mercedes about DTM, but that would have been in a B car, so old car, which for my competitive side, I didn't like too much. And then Porsche approached me as well, and they asked me if I want to do Daytona 24 hours in 2002 together with Timo. And at the time, Timo and I were probably the biggest rivals. We didn't like each other very much. And so when they asked me to do a race with him, I thought it was a bad joke and somewhere's a hidden camera. But it turned out really good. We won the race together, and since then our close friends or good friends. So and after winning the race, I got the contract as a factory driver and never really looked back.
It's very funny, Jörg, because Timo told me this exact same story in the same way as you. He says, Jörg and I didn't really like each other at the time. And we were told, I think he was told by whoever was in charge at Porsche at the time to say, well, you guys, you're going to go there and you're going to be best friends and you're going to do well. So who was the kind of contact? Who was the guy that you were speaking with at Porsche in that time, and ultimately who
at the time
offered
I was
you the chance?
Talking directly to the motorsport boss, which was Herbert Amfra.
Wow. Okay. So big boss. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Big boss back then. So, but he was obviously responsible for the contracts, and therefore, talk directly to him. Always had stayed in loose contact with Roland Kusmal. He knew my dad already from his racing days. And when I was doing Carrera Cup, Roland was doing quite a bit of work on the junior team, and therefore always talked to him as well. I think he had some say on the driver decisions as well. So yeah,
I see. And do you remember your first visit to Weissach as a factory driver? Because, you know, Patrick, when I've spoken to him, he always talks about the time when he first went there, and he said it was just such a special place. Do you remember the first time you went there and how it felt to be there?
I already went there once before I was a factory driver in '96. I had to pick up some parts at the gate and was like, so this is it. And obviously, then later on, what I really vividly remember is my first lap with Roland Kusmal on the test track, him showing me the track, him going completely crazy in the car like he is, super laid back, going sideways like no other, trying just to scare me a little bit, which he definitely achieved. So yeah, Roland is a special guy. I don't know if you had him on the show yet, but he's definitely a good one to talk to.
Not yet, but he's on the right up the top of the wish list to hear these stories. He obviously had a way of doing this, because he even did this to Helio Castroneves when he came over to test the Spider. Helio told me about that. So it's obviously Roland's initiation to take you around and scare you. So. So, I mean, you had success straight away as a works driver, but in those early years, how steep was the learning curve to go from, you know, obviously a successful driver, but to then be a factory contracted driver and to be working for Porsche and representing them? How much of a learning curve and a learning experience was that for you? Yeah,
it was definitely a mind change necessary, because coming from Carrera Cup, Super Cup, you only worry about yourself. And then once going into endurance racing, you have to worry about the teammates, but also about the brand. And there, Ivan Springer comes into play. Excuse my language for the next couple of moments. Okay. I'm just quoting him. So Daytona 2002, in the Raw, so the practice sessions, he asked us to come to his truck for a meeting. And first initiation, I never really talked to him before. He was like, "Hey," that was the first thing he said. And I was like, "Oh, okay, friendly." Basically telling Timo and myself is that he doesn't care how we do. If we hit another Porsche or mess anything up, we don't even have to come back to the paddock, because we will never drive again. So that made clear, put the ego on the side. Everything that matters is Porsche. And that's what I took from that and kept that in mind for the rest of my career. I think it was at the time pretty harsh the way he said it to us, but it definitely helped, both for Timo and myself. I think we are happy about that approach, and it worked good for us.
Yes, it didn't it just? And but you know, Alvin is a great way to the great link to the next part of our conversation, Jörg, because racing in America has been such a huge part of your career and many other Porsche drivers in the past and even to this day. Just tell us a little bit of how how important Alvin was to that operation, to getting you guys into really good teams and setting up good programs for you to go racing, because he's such a big name in the States. But tell us what it was like kind of working alongside with him at that time.
Yeah, let's say the first couple of years it was, let's say, fairly relaxed, because we were just, let's say, racing against the customers. With a factory supported team, Alex Job. So obviously we tried to beat our teammates. But other than that, the level of competition wasn't like what it was in the later years to come. So there was quite some free time and golf playing in the meantime when we weren't at the track, together with Alvin as well. So was very nice and relaxed atmosphere. And Alvin is just a cool character. You always listen when Alvin talks. I think the only time that's different is when Alvin's wife talks to him, because then it's only Yolande talking and not Alvin. So it's funny to see that someone like him, who always dishes it out, can also take it then. No, really super cool guy. Still love to spend time with him, and always great talking to him. He's the biggest part of Porsche racing in the US. He made it all happen, and without him, I think Porsche wouldn't be so strong in America.
Wow, it's incredible, the impact he's had. I mean, tell us a little bit about, racing in America. As you said, as it started to get more competitive, it got very competitive very quickly with, Corvette and coming in GT2 later on, but BMW and Panos, and there was so much competition in there when the Ferraris came in. I mean, tell us about in those peak times of the American Le Mans series, just how fierce that competition was. And I bet it was a lot of fun as well, I bet.
Yeah, it was awesome racing. For me personally, I always enjoyed racing in the States because the tracks still have consequences. So when you make a mistake, you pay for it. And initially, or for the fans, it's cool. For the drivers, it's always something you are not really a big fan of. It's all the yellow flags. But I started to really enjoy it because it always gave you a new start, which wasn't too nice when you were leading and had a nice gap. But then it made you even work harder for the win. So therefore, I really like the character of racing, that you had to keep going and going again after every full course yellow to try to win the race and bring it home. The racing and competition, I think, was very good, especially for GT racing. And together with my different teammates, first was Johannes at Flying Lizard, Johannes van Overbeek, then Wolf Hensler, and then going back to Patrick Long, teaming up with him again was very cool, and still very good memories of that. So, excuse me. Just great times, great racing, cool tracks, lots of fans at the racetrack. As Don Panos kept saying back then, for the fans, and I think that was achieved back then.
Yeah, I think that still lives to this day as well. Being at Daytona in January is such a great fan experience. I mean, a huge part of that time of your career, Jörg, was Flying Lizard Motorsport, an iconic team in Porsche history, in my opinion. And we were very lucky to have Seth Nyman on the show a few months ago. And he was very modest about his impact on the team and how he supported the team. But as a driver, what was it like to drive for Flying Lizard? Because they had so much success and such great cars, and just give us an impression from your mind what it was like to be a driver with them.
Well, I was racing for Peters and White Lightning together with Patrick for 2 years, and we, I'd say, had a very successful time. And then our former engineer, Stefan Pfeiffer, went to Flying Lizard. And back then he was already saying, wait 1 year, I'm going to set everything up, and then you come over. I was like, let's see, let's do that, and we'll see where we go. When I first came there in 2006, I believe.
Yes, 2006, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Actually, it wasn't too easy. Like always, in a relationship, you need to get used to each other. And I had my ways, which were sometimes not the easiest, because I wanted to have things done in a certain way because I knew it worked. So the team at the very first beginning didn't like me too much. So Stefan Pfeiffer, the engineer, had to do a lot of talking and negotiating in between. But once the success came and we got used to each other, let's say, the relationship got really good, not only with Seth, but the entire crew. Really good guys. The number one mechanic back then was Roger Rice, who unfortunately already passed away. Initially, he really didn't like me because I was so pushy and wanted the things to be done the way I wanted it. But as soon as he realized that there was a reason for it, it really was basically perfect harmony and just a great team. And then Wolf came in for the second year, and Roland Kusmol as a race engineer.
Wow.
With a 997. First year with Johannes wasn't so easy. As I said, getting used to everything, and also the car wasn't perfectly competitive. But with Roland stepping in and putting focus on the GT side again, that definitely changed, and had a really successful season with Wolf, winning the championship. And then Patrick came on board, and we continued the winning ways. So
yeah, that's the understatement of the day so far. There was a lot of winning going on. I mean, there's even for fans of racing who maybe didn't see the races at the time or have never seen the races in the past, many people know about one particular race which you did win, but in very dramatic circumstances, Laguna Seca 2009. And if anyone's ever typed in Magnussen Bergmeister 2009 into YouTube, this clip will always come up. It's one of the craziest battles I think I've ever seen. And it ended ended with you winning, but and Jan not. I mean, just tell us some of your memories of that race and the aftermath of that race, because it was, you and Jan at the time were basically the two best guys in the world, going absolutely full throttle. Just tell us what that was like to be in the heat of that battle.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the most intense race I ever had, to be honest. So basically what the circumstances was, we needed to do 75% of the race just to win the championship, which by that time, obviously, we already did. So the championship was secured. So it was just going for the win. So gloves off, and who's going to win? I mean, the last couple of minutes were obviously, the outcome was nothing I wanted to happen, but the racing beforehand was already in a way that there was plenty of contact between the cars, and the gloves already had come off. So going in the last lap, or going into the last corner, I had a little gap, then just tried to get a good exit, and I don't know what Jan did, but he just tapped me slightly in the back to mess up my exit. And then I was like, nope, I'm not going to lose that way. So I squeezed him towards the pit wall, both cars rubbing, and at the Corvette had quite a bit more power at that time. They were just coming into GT2, and therefore BOP wasn't quite perfect yet. He was just a little bit ahead, and we kept touching, and then at some point he started turning in front of my car. At that point, I figured, okay, nothing I can really do anymore. He's ahead. So I braked, and due to that, it accelerated him, as I didn't want to damage my car anymore. Unfortunately, that put him into the outside wall very, very heavily. I won, but definitely not in a way that I would have preferred. I mean, a smooth run to the end would have been nicer. Unfortunately, Jan, I think, broke his tailbone and a couple of ribs. So, which I didn't know till trip to Daytona in 2010. We were by accident on the same flight, started talking, and was no bad feeling. So, therefore, quite a memorable moment, and a lot of people ask me about it.
I bet. I mean, what happened when you got out of the car? Because I'm sure when you're on the cool down lap, were you thinking, there's going to be a problem? But what was it like coming on the cool down lap and coming into the pit lane? Were you bracing for what happened? But what was said when you got out of the car?
Oh, I mean, I was under so much adrenaline because, I mean, the racing, it was like the last 45 minutes of the race, I was flat out and just tried to stay ahead of him. And probably the last 15 minutes was permanent contact between the two of us. So I was just happy. I was honestly shaking after it was over, and was just waiting on what's going to happen. And we went to the podium. The race director said he leaves it like that. He actually said after the race that I could have let him by because he would have reversed it. I was like, well, you should have told me beforehand. So, yeah, there was no fight or anything, luckily, because I think the Corvette guys for a moment were on the verge of starting one. But I didn't see any of that. So all good. Last week I was at Thermal Race Club, met Johnny O'Connell, who was in the car in the Corvette team as well. We talked about it and had a good laugh about it. So no hard feelings.
Wow. Well, that is very good. That is very good to hear that there isn't, and it's for us fans, it gives us a great story to talk about from those days. I mean, if I understand correctly, Jörg, was there a period of time that you were a Porsche Works driver, but then actually dropped out of the Works team and then came back again a year later? Is that true?
2 years actually.
2. Okay.
At the end of 2004, there was a decision by the board that Mike Rockefeller, who won the Carrera Cup Championship and was a junior at the time, needed to become a factory driver. And I was the last one to come on that wasn't a junior. So they sorted me out for 2 years. But that was actually the second best thing in my career that happened, because in those 2 years I won 3 championships, I believe.
Yes,
and then the negotiation afterwards was a little easier when I came back.
So you ended up with a better deal then?
Yeah, a lot better.
Good. Good.
So, and they are also, Roland Kusmol basically was the one saying that they need to hire me back. And yeah, that was definitely a good moment, because end of 04, I didn't win the championship together with Timo in 04, because in Sebring I wanted to race, but they wouldn't let me in the car because I was too sick. I had a fever of over 40 degrees.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I wasn't allowed to get in and do my mandatory laps. Therefore lost the championship. And at the end of the year, also the drive as a factory driver. So obviously not a very happy feeling. But in retrospect, I think it definitely helped me. Also on my mindset, on not taking anything for granted and always making sure to push for the maximum and get the most out of it.
Wow, that's an incredible time. Let's talk a little bit about some of the people you shared the car with, Jörg, because I think your career was in such a great era for Porsche with so many great personalities, so many great drivers. Could you say you had a favorite teammate in that time?
My favorite, I think, is easy, is Patrick Long. We just got along really well. Good friends, very little ego, and we really knew how to take each other, what the strengths and weaknesses were of each other, and therefore made us a very good and relaxed pairing. I think that's super important. On the paper, it's always easy to put drivers together. But if they don't get along, or if the ego is too big, it's not going to work. And that was one thing with Patrick and myself that really was smooth, and we gelled, and just made us a very strong pairing, I think.
How did you fit in the same seat? Because you're very tall, and Patrick's he's like a jockey. He's quite different shape to you.
Yes, he actually has a proper height for a race car driver, unlike me. In the 911, it was never an issue because we had a sliding seat. In the prototype, when we were racing for Alex Job in the Crawford, I basically had to feel very sorry for him because he needed a super big booster seat. So proper thick insert, which meant he had very little side support in the seat. And so it was, and that car wasn't easy, but it worked out, and we even won a race together in DP as well.
That's good. You're able to fit him in there. Is there? Yeah. I'm sure there's many stories that we couldn't possibly talk about on air. But if there is any that you could, is there any funny stories of being on the road with Patrick, or indeed any of your Porsche factory colleagues?
I'm not sure if they would appreciate me telling them here. So there's definitely a lot of funny stories, lots of good jokes, very good memories, but not going to share them. I'm sorry.
That's when you know they're really good. If you can't share them.
Yeah, we had some very memorable trips, I would say, with a lot of different guys. So always. The fun was always there as well. So
I can only imagine. Hopefully, we can discuss them over a beer sometime.
In private, no problem.
without the microphone. Yes. One car I really want to chat to you about, Jörg, is the 911 GT3R hybrid, which I understand you were very heavily involved with. I mean, tell us a little bit about where the kind of concept for this project came, and how challenging it was to create that car.
Yeah, I together with Owen Hayes, who was the race engineer back then on the project, I would say it was a little bit my baby. Was definitely the lead development driver for the car. And the idea was to build a hybrid race car. So in that, I had no say, obviously. But then when we had all the components and tried to make them work together, it was a really cool challenge. And the progress we made, and seeing that things we did back then are still being used in modern prototypes is really cool. And it's the little things like LED lights for the state of charge, a recube button, and all those things that you can use when you have a hybrid car. We never had before, so was all a steep learning curve, and the car was fun to drive. It sounded always like you had a big vacuum cleaner next to you with that flywheel system. And honestly, the perfect car to race at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, because you could pass without any problems, even cars that were in the same class, because it was an extra boost. You could just get next to him and even pass on the Nordschleife, which made it super good.
That's fascinating. I mean, how... it seemed like such a good concept, as you said, loads of great technology on it to make it a great race car, not just the obvious efficiency credentials, but why haven't we really seen anything kind of come up? Obviously, we've seen many prototypes with hybrid drive and things, but why do you think we haven't seen more cars like the 911 GT3R hybrid? Why didn't the concept take off, do you think?
I wouldn't say it didn't take off. I would say it's probably just in GT racing with a BOP, it would make things even more complex and harder to get it right. And similar concepts, not with a flywheel system, but hybrid cars are very common nowadays in racing. So yeah, I guess maybe a matter of time till we have the first hybrid or full electric proper race cars.
Well, that's I guess that takes us on nicely to what you do nowadays. I mean, electric is obviously becoming a big part of the Porsche road car fleet and potentially race cars as well. I mean, tell us a little bit about what you do now at Porsche. Now that you're let's just say retired for now from competitive driving, what do you do now at Porsche day to day?
Well, the official title is Porsche Brand Ambassador. So I do some PR stuff, driving events and so on. But most of the time, actually, I do development work for road cars. Like last big project was GT3 RS. Also did the official lap time on the Nordschleife then. But also every once in a while, I get to drive the race car still. For instance, the GT4E Performance, the all-electric car, which really blew my mind. I know it's missing an engine sound, but the performance of the car is really completely nuts. On qualifying mode, you have almost 1,200 horsepower in a 1,500 kilo car. It puts a big smile on your face, even though you don't have an engine sound.
I really want to hear more about this, Jörg, about the GT4E Performance, because how far away are we from these cars rolling out into competition? Because they look like, from all the photographs and videos I've seen, they look like incredible machines. But in terms of rolling them out for competition, what sort of stage of the process are we at?
That's a good question. I honestly don't know. My guess would be at the moment the cars are obviously still fairly expensive, but as it's a prototype. But I'm hopeful that in the not too far future, we're going to see like maybe a car run here and there, or maybe a small cup. That would be cool because honestly, it's an amazing car. And the sound it makes is not like a no sound. It has a straight cut gearbox, and therefore when you're driving it and also from the outside, it sounds more like a fighter jet going by. It's really an impressive car. I even told Walter, once he has driven that car, he's never going to complain about electric cars anymore. So.
I bet. Could it do?
It's really proper.
I bet it is. Do you is it possible that it could do like an SPX entry at the Nürburgring, for example, with stops for charging, etc.?
I don't think so. I think the way that it's laid out, it's more like for cup/sprint format. On a battery charge, you can go. It depends a little bit on the track, between 30 and 40 minutes, I'd say. And therefore, it's a car for sprint racing. So a proper cup format, I think, would be cool. And we'll see what happens in the future. What will be decided, I don't know.
I like it. I mean, the GT3 RS, a car you mentioned, I mean, it's a car that's been on the Porsche range for 20 years now, but this particular version seems to be such a big step above anything else. I mean, it's technically a road car, but the performance figures are mind-blowing. But just tell us a little bit about the development of the GT3 RS and how proud you all feel of it, because it just seems like such a big step, even in today's world of crazy cars.
Yes, super proud. I mean, together with the entire team, it was quite an accomplishment to do that lap time on the Nordschleife, and all the work in advance, I think, really paid off. The downforce level of the car is crazy. I mean, we're talking about on high downforce, it makes a similar downforce to a RSR on the Le Mans spec. So that's really proper race car downforce. And to compare it with a cup car, I raced a cup car at the Nürburgring last year as well, and all the quick corners, the cup car is slower than the GT3 RS, and that's on a completely street legal car. I think that speaks volumes, and really anyone that got in the car so far is completely blown away and loves it. So what was my first, I'd say, full project from beginning to the end, working together with the guys and having some say in the development as well. Different functions, like for instance, a brake tap that you can do with a car under when you're on full throttle and just slightly tap the brake, it goes to full downforce for 2 seconds, which you can use on different sections on the Nordschleife or on any racetrack where you want to enter already on high downforce. Stuff like that. I always enjoyed testing and development while I was still a race car driver, and still get to do it. So the perfect job now.
Wow, that is remarkable. I mean, so you're talking, this is a car with street register, completely street legal, and it's as much downforce as an RSR with the Le Mans kit. That's hard to get my head around, actually, how a street car can do this. That's amazing. I mean, how much mileage do you think you did during the testing process, or how many hours? It must have been a lot to get that level of performance.
Yeah, I was definitely very deeply involved. I did quite a lot of tire development, both already for the, let's say, baseline tire and also for the high performance tire, which is then the Michelin Cup 2R. So I was heavily involved there, and then on setup. And the closer we got to the point when we wanted to do the lap time, obviously, I did a lot of new tire runs on the Nordschleife in preparation as well. Really enjoyed that. So still get to go fast and enjoy what I'm doing. But spend a lot of time with that project for sure. Lots.
Amazing.
I can't put mileage on it or hours, but probably a couple of months in total.
Wow, that's a lot. I mean, of course, during the rolling the car out and showing it to journalists, it's what is it like, taking the journalists around with them either in the passenger seat, or do you try and do a rolling Kussmaul and scare them as well, or what's your job in that situation?
Now, usually we give taxi rides, or I give taxi rides as well on those events, and but that's to finish off the day. And usually most of them are very impressed on what the car is really capable of, especially in the high-speed sections. The first time we went with the official press launch was at Silverstone. So a proper track, Meggetts Beckett's going through there with a car with downforce. When you haven't experienced anything like that, it takes some time to get used to, and with a limited time the journalists have there, for them then to get in the passenger seat and seeing what the car can really do is, I would say, for most of them, an eye-opener.
And when you were driving, could you have imagined having a job like this in your sort of retirement from full-time competition? Was this something that you always thought you would do, or did you have other ideas of what to do in retirement?
No, honestly, I didn't expect that at all. That was always, let's say, in the back of the head, something I was thinking about. What could I do after professional racing? When the chance came, or the offer came from Porsche, I hadn't completely thought about it yet, but didn't have to think twice, because just by what they were offering me, it was a dream job. And that's what it is. I mean, especially in the combination was doing some PR stuff in between, and then also doing all the development work, working together with the engineers and the teams to build those fantastic cars is just as a dream come true. Honestly, I couldn't ask for anything better. It's perfect.
I think they've got the right guy for the job. I think, to be honest, I think they've done quite well too to get someone who can do both. I mean, just the last couple of things for you, Jörg. I mean, you've still, you still. I presume you still have your competition license. Should you be required?
For this year, I haven't ordered one, but for last year, I had one, and then a good friend of mine, like last minute, one of his co-drivers dropped out, and he basically begged me to do a race. So last year I did one race in a cup car on the Nordschleife. Wasn't too bad for having not tested before. We won the Pro M class, so that was all right. But for this year, I don't know if anything last minute comes up. I don't know if I have to get a license or not. But to be completely honest, I would only want to go racing if it's in a proper program with proper preparation, because that's what I've done all my career. And just to go out there for fun, I don't really enjoy. Then I prefer working on the cars, and I mean, I still get to go as quick as I want or can when we set the lap times, and therefore not missing anything on the racing side of things. But who knows? If Porsche wants me or needs me to do something, I'm definitely up for it.
Yeah, you go do whatever you like. Whatever you like. Yeah, it's. Have they let you out in the 963?
I didn't have anything to do with that project. I'm not even sure if I would fit in the car. But obviously, really great times for sports car racing. Looking forward for the next couple of races and for the next years, especially with all the manufacturer involvement. I think the fans have something to look out for. It's going to be cool.
I didn't think about the height aspect. They are quite small cars, aren't they?
Yeah, with a 919, I had one day in the simulator. No seat insert, no shoes, and no helmet I could fit, but otherwise, no. Oh, dear. As I said, not the proper height for a race car driver. With 194 is not the way to go.
Yeah, you better be a basketball player with that height.
Yeah, maybe next life. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, we have one final question for you here, Jörg, and we really appreciate you taking the time to come and join us on the show and talk through your amazing career. We have a final question. We call it the Racing Genie, and if you were to choose any race in history, in any car in history, and with any teammate in history, what would your ultimate choice be?
That's a tough one. My ultimate race. That's a good one. Teammate, I would go for Patrick Long for sure. And then what race could we do together? Let's see. We have done Nürburgring together, Le Mans, obviously. That's a good one. Honestly, there's nothing I really miss in my career from my point of view. So I'm happy with what I have done. Obviously, it would have been nice to be in a prototype or whatever. But that's just not possible with my height. So I had to accept that, and that wasn't an issue. Really, I mean, a big fan of Ayrton Senna. Michael Schumacher basically taught me go-karting. So from that side, really happy. And maybe a race in Suzuka with Patrick and actually go back. Racing together with my dad and my brother would have been cool.
Oh, that would be very cool. At Le Mans, what car would you choose for the Bergmeister family outing?
RSR, obviously. Actually, we tried doing it 1 year in 2004, but our entry got denied, and therefore never had a chance again.
Oh dear!
But that would have been something special.
That would have been amazing. So why did they? Well, I guess you never know why, but. Why did they refuse an entry? That would have been a great car to have.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, anyhow, at the end, it paid off okay for me because 2004 was then my first win in Le Mans. But looking back, yeah, it would have been really nice to share a car with my dad.
Now that's a very good. That would be a very good answer to the question. I think one of those things that came so close.
It took a while, but finally something came out.
Sorry, Patrick, you're on the bench now.
Yeah.
Well, Jörg, it's such a joy to hear so much about your career, and congratulations on the career you've had, but also congratulations on the new life that you have with Porsche now, and these amazing products that you guys continue to make for the road and for the racetrack. And we from all of us here at PorscheSport, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. And hopefully the new products won't disappoint anyone in the future. Would make me very happy.
The PorscheSport podcast, powered by Porsche Center Leeds. Test drive the new Porsche Taycan and experience soul electrified.